So, a couple weeks ago, I decided to make a video about some tips and tricks for Persona 5 Royal, and now that it's out, I've decided to make one about Strikers as well. Honestly, I'm planning tips and tricks videos for all the Persona games at one point, from the modern ones to the hood classics. Hell, even the spin-offs at one point. Here's hoping I can beat them all in time. With that said, like and sub if you enjoy the content, and with that shameless plug done, let's get started. So, in the original Persona 5, the game had you running through palaces in the metaverse while battling enemies in fast, fluid, turn-based combat. But in Strikers, things are a little different. You're still battling enemies in the metaverse, but now combat takes the style of a Muso game, meaning there's a large group of jobber enemies that you tear to shreds, and then deal with the enemies that are actually capable of putting up a fight. As a result, combat is no longer turn-based, and battles are made up of you mixing together light and heavy combos, using your dodge to, dodge the enemy's attacks, and delivering counter hits with your various abilities. And while the combat is completely reworked, there are some similarities to Persona 5, and that's with the weakness system, where hitting enemies with their weaknesses deals more damage and allows openings for all-out attacks. And finally, there's the fact that you can now freely switch between the 4 party members you have on your team, with you no longer only needing to stay as Joker. It's personally my favorite mechanic in the game, as it's so much fun to play with the other Phantom Thieves. I'd even argue that some of them are more fun to play as than Joker himself. They also all have the extra combos that they can unlock through continuous use of them. It's important to play as every person you can, so you can unlock all of their combos. I realize I've spent a fair bit of time on this, but I wanted to include as much as I could in this one. But since I've wrapped this one up, let's move on to number 4. One of the most memorable things about the original Persona 5 was the option to be able to spend time with your friends and party members to boost what was known as the Confidant system. In Strikers, that's not here. What takes its place, however, is what's known as the Bond system. This system requires you to either defeat the various enemies in the game, complete the side quests / bond events in the game, or cook the various dishes you learn about, in the game. When you do, you obtain Bond experience that accumulate to a Bond level, which will grant you extra points to spend on the Bond board, which is what I call it. It actually has a name, but I don't want to call it the Bond board because, it looks like a Bond board, for upgrades to your character. These upgrades can range from simple stat boosts to the team, to ways to improve combat scenarios, to even increasing how much Bond experience you can earn. These Bond skills are a necessity going forward throughout the game, and I argue that they are even more important to your character than even your own levels. So, for those who have played the OG Persona 5 or its Royal variant, you'll remember that the game would always place you on a timer with the calendar date. The calendar system has been one of the most divisive additions to what is known as the modern Persona era. They were used to create these dangerous stakes where failure meant your dark fate was sealed. And in Strikers, that calendar system isn't here. As a result, you are no longer on any sort of timer whatsoever, which is best used for talking with whoever you can, as conversing with the several of the NPCs, not to mention your own party members, can lead you to obtain things like new side quests, recipes to cook, and even rare items to equip to your characters. Who knew actually going out and communicating with other people had a positive effect on someone? Maybe I should try it sometime. Nah. Okay, so originally I was going to include this in number 5 as well, but I felt like it was important enough to earn its own spot. So in times when you enter battle, you may notice these objects sitting throughout the arena. The giant ice chunks, to the lightning boxes, to poles to spin around on like you have flow motion from Kingdom Hearts. And they bring more to the table than just adding some visual flair to the battlefield. They are actually used as a special one-time only Area of Effect Special Attack. Ice crystals count as Bufus, wind attacks are Garus, and well, you know what, you get the point. These little AoE attacks become some of the single most helpful abilities in the entire game. There was this one thing I kind of alluded to in 5, but I decided to talk about it here instead of there. In the combat of Strikers, the spells you use in the game will still cost you SP like the original, but with how intense the combat can become, you will be using your abilities quite a lot more in order to break down shields for your all-out attacks. Like, a lot more, to be honest. A lot more than needed, if I'm being perfectly honest. And as a result, you burn through your SP really fast. So these AoE attacks become incredibly useful for preserving SP, so you can lessen the need of having to constantly leave levels or use your items to restore SP. And this lets you save it for all of the boss fights, which you are going to need them for. Honestly, it felt kind of natural to include the grinding stuff for the number 1 spot, since we did that for the Royal video. So, when you reach the 3rd area of the game, you will notice a patch of grass in the middle of the area. In this grass, you can look through it for a chance to find a 4-leaf clover, which will grant you a massive boost to your bond gauge. However, unlike a lot of all the other bond events where once it happens you just get a big surge and then you can't really do it again, basically they were just one and dones, you can actually redo this bond action to get its best outcome as much as you want. All you have to do is just simply leave the area and come right back. The area completely resets, and then you can dig through it to find another 4-leaf clover. You won't find it immediately, you'll probably have to do it a few times, but you will continuously gain bond levels the more you do it. And you can just keep doing it over, and over, and over, and constantly find them. And while you won't be able to buy all the upgrades due to multiple levels of them being locked behind progressing through the game, you will be able to completely max out your bond levels, so you will always have the points whenever you get these new levels. In fact, doing this can help you unlock a trophy. It's honestly one of the easiest ways to do it too. Trust me, bond levels get brutal to unlock. And that, my friends, is all for this video. If you enjoyed yourself, please drop a like and a sub, and I will see every one of you hopefully next week for another Kingdom Hearts video.